I'm standing in my kitchen right now, holding the checkbook Roger thought I didn't know about. The one with both our names on it. The one that's been emptied. But that's not even the worst part. The worst part is what I found 3 months ago when I tried to surprise him at work with his favorite pot roast. That's when everything I thought I knew turned into smoke. Before we begin, drop a comment below with your country and what time it is right now where you're watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Don't just sit back. Tell me where in the world you are. Now let's dive into the story. The security guard at Hollister Technologies looked at me like I'd asked to break into a vault. I was 72 years old, standing in the marble lobby with a warm casserole dish wrapped in tea towels, and this man in his crisp uniform was shaking his head at me. "Ma'am, I need to see your badge or have authorization from an employee." I smiled. I'd been married to Roger for 48 years. I'm Roger Hartman's wife. He's in accounting, 3rd floor. The guard didn't smile back. He clicked something on his computer. His face changed, just slightly, like he'd seen something he shouldn't have. "I'm sorry, ma'am, you're not on the authorized visitor list." I stood there holding that pot roast. The heat was seeping through the towels into my hands. There must be a mistake. I'm his wife. He looked at me again. Different this time. Pity, maybe, or discomfort. "I can't let you up without authorization. Company policy." I could have called Roger right then, but something stopped me. Something in the way that guard wouldn't meet my eyes. So I thanked him. I walked back to my car. I sat there in the parking lot for 20 minutes, watching people come and go through those glass doors. And I thought about the past 5 years, how Roger started working late, how he joined that gym, how he bought new clothes and started using cologne that smelled like cedar and something sweet I couldn't name. I drove home. I put the pot roast in the refrigerator, and I sat at the kitchen table until Roger came home at 7:30, same as always. "How was your day?" I asked him. "Same old," he said. He kissed the top of my head. He smelled like that cologne. "What's for dinner?" I heated up the pot roast. We ate in front of the television. He told me about a project deadline. He asked if I'd paid the electric bill. Everything was normal. Everything was the same as it had been for years. But I kept thinking about that security guard's face, about not being on a list. The next morning, after Roger left for work, I went through his desk, not the one in the living room where he paid bills, the one in the garage, behind the boxes of Christmas decorations. I found a phone bill for a number I didn't recognize. I found credit card statements I'd never seen, restaurants I'd never been to, hotels in Ridgemont, 2 towns over, a jewelry store charge for $3,000. I hadn't gotten jewelry in 15 years. I sat on the concrete floor of that garage, holding papers that proved my husband had another life. But I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just sat there thinking about what came next. Because crying doesn't change anything. Screaming doesn't either. But information does. Strategy does. I spent that whole week watching him. Really watching. The way you watch a stranger. He had patterns I'd stopped noticing. He showered and shaved every morning, even on Saturdays. He checked his phone constantly. He smiled at it sometimes, little smiles, private ones. He never smiled at me like that anymore. On Thursday, I followed him. I'd never followed anyone in my life, but I got in my car and I stayed 3 vehicles behind him, just like in the movies. He didn't go to Hollister Technologies. He went to a townhouse in Greenbrier Estates. Nice neighborhood, new construction. He parked in the driveway. He used a key. He walked in like he lived there. I sat in my car at the end of the street for 2 hours. I brought a thermos of tea and a book I didn't read. At 1:30, a woman came out.
She was maybe 50, blonde hair, good figure. She wore yoga clothes and carried a mat. She got into a silver Honda and drove away. Roger came out 10 minutes later. He locked the door. He looked happy. I didn't confront him, not yet. Instead, I went to the library and used their computer. I'm not stupid with technology, but I'm not clever either. Therefore, I asked the librarian, a young woman named Beth, to show me how to search property records. She was patient. She showed me the county website, how to enter an address. The townhouse in Greenbrier Estates was owned by Roger Hartman and Linda Voss. Joint ownership, purchased 3 years ago. I wrote it down in my small notebook, the one I keep in my purse for grocery lists. Linda Voss. I wrote the address, the purchase date, then I searched her name on Facebook. Beth showed me how. Linda Voss had a page full of photos, her at the beach, her at wine tastings, her at a Christmas party wearing a red dress and standing next to my husband, his arm around her waist. The photo was dated last December. I'd spent that Christmas making a turkey for Roger and his brother's family. I'd washed dishes while Roger watched football. Linda's page said she worked at Hollister Technologies, Human Resources. That's how they met. I took screenshots. Beth showed me how to do that too. I emailed them to myself. Then I cleared the browser history because Beth said I should. I thanked her. I went home and made pot roast again. Different one this time, from scratch. Roger ate it and said it was good. He watched television. I sat next to him and knitted a scarf I'd started in September. We looked like any married couple, comfortable, quiet, boring. But inside my head, I was building something, a plan, because I realized something sitting there with my knitting needles clicking. Roger thought I was old. He thought I was slow. He thought I'd never notice or never care or never do anything about it, and that made me angrier than the cheating itself. That weekend, I told Roger I was visiting my sister in Parkfield. Helen's been dead for 6 years, but Roger never remembered dates. He never sent flowers on her birthday anymore. He just nodded and said, "Have a good time." So I packed a small bag. I drove to Parkfield. I checked into a motel. Then I drove back to Greenbrier Estates and parked where I could see that townhouse.
Roger arrived at 11 Saturday morning. He had grocery bags. He went inside. An hour later, Linda pulled up. She had bags too. They were shopping together, playing house. I watched them through the front window, moving around the kitchen, laughing. He touched her face. She kissed him. They looked happy. They looked like people in love. I stayed until dark. They never closed the curtains. I saw them cook dinner together. I saw them eat on the couch. I saw them kiss again, longer this time. Then I drove to the motel and lay on top of the bedspread in my clothes, staring at the ceiling. Sunday, I drove home. Roger was there watching golf. "How's Helen?" he asked. "Same as always," I said. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about that townhouse, about Linda Voss, about 48 years of marriage and whether any of it was real. But I also thought about money, because Roger and I had money, not rich people money, but comfortable money, his pension, our savings, the house paid off 20 years ago. And I thought about what happens in a divorce at 72, what I'd be entitled to, what I'd lose. Monday morning, I made an appointment with a lawyer, not in our town, in Ridgemont, where nobody knew me. A woman named Patricia Cho. I found her online. She specialized in late-life divorce. Her website said she understood the unique challenges facing older women. That's what I needed, understanding. Her office was in a converted house near downtown.
cream-colored walls, soft music. She was maybe 60, sharp eyes. She shook my hand and offered me tea. I took it. Then I told her everything. The security guard, the property records, Linda Voss, the credit cards, the townhouse. I showed her the screenshots on my phone. She looked at them for a long time. "How long do you think this has been going on?" she asked. 3 years at least, maybe longer. "And you haven't confronted him?" "No." "Good." She set my phone down. "Don't. Not yet. We need to gather everything first. Bank statements, tax returns, property deeds, investment accounts, everything. Can you get those?" "Yes." "Do it quietly. Make copies. Don't let him know you're looking." I became a spy in my own house. Every day after Roger left for work, I went through everything. I photographed documents with my phone. Beth at the library showed me how to use cloud storage. I uploaded everything there. Bank statements going back 10 years, tax returns, Roger's employment contract, the deed to our house, insurance policies. I even found our wills tucked in his desk drawer. He'd updated his 2 years ago, without telling me. He left everything to my children and surviving spouse. We don't have children, but Linda might. I found more credit card bills. One card I'd never seen, just in his name. Charges going back 5 years. Hotels, restaurants, jewelry stores. A furniture charge for $8,000. I checked our bank statements. He'd been transferring money from our joint savings to a personal account. 500 here, 1,000 there. Small enough I hadn't noticed, but over 5 years it added up to $73,000. I photographed everything. I didn't cry. I didn't shake. I just documented it like evidence at a crime scene, because that's what it was, a crime against our marriage, against me.
Patricia Chose smiled when I brought her the files. "This is good," she said. "Very good. The property in both names is marital asset territory. The money he transferred without your knowledge is recoverable. And if Linda Voss knew he was married, that changes things too." "She knew," I said. "She works in HR. She processed our insurance. My name is on his policy." Patricia nodded. "Even better. Now here's what happens next. We file for divorce. We ask for full financial disclosure. We request half of everything, plus reimbursement for the money he hid. We can probably get temporary support while this processes. But Margaret, I need to warn you, this will get ugly. He'll be angry. He might try to hide more assets. Are you prepared for that?" I thought about Roger's face, how he looked at Linda, how he never looked at me anymore. "Yes," I said. "Then let's begin." But I didn't let Patricia file yet, because I thought of something better, something quieter. I went home and I thought about Linda Voss, about what she knew, about whether she thought she was the only one, and I realized I needed to know more about her, not just Facebook photos, real information. I drove to Hollister Technologies again. This time I didn't go to the main entrance. I went to the coffee shop across the street. I sat by the window. I waited. At noon, employees started coming out for lunch. At 12:15, Linda Voss walked out with 2 other women. They went to the sandwich shop next door. I watched them through the window. Linda laughed a lot. She touched one woman's arm while talking. She seemed nice. That made it worse somehow. I followed them back to Hollister. Then I went to the sandwich shop. I ordered coffee. I asked the teenager behind the counter if she knew the blonde woman who'd just been in. "She comes in all the time," I said. "I think we went to school together." The girl shrugged. "Linda? Yeah, she's here every day. Turkey and Swiss, no mayo." "That's her, Linda. Does she still live over on Preston Avenue?" I made up a street name. "I don't know where she lives," the girl said. She looked bored. I thanked her. I sat in my car. I felt stupid for trying. But then I thought about the townhouse, about joint ownership, about property records, and I realized Linda was serious. This wasn't just an affair. Roger was building a whole second life, with property, with shared bills, with future plans. That night, Roger came home late. "Sorry," he said. "Meeting ran over." "That's fine," I said. I'd made lasagna, his favorite. We ate, we watched television, he fell asleep on the couch. I covered him with a blanket. I looked at his face. He was 74. We'd been married since I was 24 and he was 26, almost 5 decades. I'd washed his clothes, cooked his food, taken care of his mother when she got sick. I'd been his wife through everything. And now he was sleeping in someone else's bed 3 days a week. I went to our bedroom. I lay in the dark, and I made my final decision. I wasn't going to file for divorce first. I was going to make Roger do it. I was going to make him choose, because I realized something important. And long as Roger could have both lives, he would. He was comfortable. He had me taking care of the house, doing his laundry, making his meals, and he had Linda for everything else. But if he had to choose, he'd choose Linda. That was clear. Therefore, I needed him to choose in a way that would cost him everything.
The next morning, I called Patricia Cho. "I need to know something. If Roger files for divorce, does that change anything legally?" "No," she said. "It doesn't matter who files. The assets are still divided the same way. Why?" "Just wondering." I hung up. Then I did something I'd never done before. I created a fake email account. Beth at the library helped me again. She was starting to ask questions, but I just smiled and said I was researching a project. I named the email account Concerned Friend 247, and I sent Linda Voss a message through Facebook. The message said, "You should know that Roger Hartman is married. His wife Margaret has no idea about you. I thought you deserved to know the truth." I sent it. Then I closed the browser and went home. I didn't know if Linda would respond. I didn't know if she'd tell Roger. But I knew it would do something. Create cracks. Make them talk. Make them uncomfortable. 3 days later, Roger came home early. 2 in the afternoon. He never came home early. He walked in, and I was folding laundry in the living room. He looked pale, sick almost. "We need to talk," he said. I set down the towel I was holding. "About what?" If you've made it this far, thank you for watching, and before we continue, please subscribe to Whispers of Grandma. Let's keep breathing life into stories that were never meant to stay silent. Stories like this deserve to be heard. Now, let's continue. He sat on the couch. He put his head in his hands. "I don't know how to say this." I waited. My heart was beating hard, but I kept my face neutral, calm. I sat in the armchair across from him. "I've been seeing someone, another woman. I'm sorry, I didn't plan it, it just happened." "How long?" My voice was steady. 3 years, a little more." "Do you love her?" He looked up at me. His eyes were wet. "I don't know, maybe. Yes, I think so." I nodded slowly. "What do you want to do?" "I think I want a divorce." There it was. The thing I'd been pushing him toward, but hearing it still hurt, like a knife sliding between ribs, clean and cold. I took a breath. "If that's what you want." "I'll be fair," he said quickly. "I'll make sure you're taken care of. You can have the house. I'll cover everything. You won't have to worry about money." I almost laughed, but I didn't. "Okay." He looked surprised, like he'd expected me to cry or scream. "Okay? If you want a divorce, then we'll get divorced. We're too old for fighting." He nodded. He looked relieved. "Thank you. I'll call a lawyer tomorrow. We can do this quick. Amicable." "Yes," I said. "Quick is good." He stood up. "I'm going to stay at a hotel tonight. Give us both space." "That's probably best." He went to the bedroom. I heard him packing. He came out with a suitcase 20 minutes later. He stopped at the door.
I really am sorry, Margaret. I know. He left. I sat in that armchair for an hour, not moving. Then I called Patricia Cho. He filed? She asked. Not yet, but he's going to. He told me about the affair. He's moving out. He thinks we're doing this amicable. Patricia was quiet for a moment. What do you want to do? I want everything he tried to hide. I want half the townhouse, half his pension, half everything, and I want reimbursement for the money he transferred, with interest. Then we wait for him to file. The moment he does, we respond, and we don't hold back. Good.
Roger filed for divorce 2 weeks later. His lawyer sent the papers to the house. Very simple filing. Irreconcilable differences. Proposed settlement where I got the house and he kept his pension and his other property. It was insulting. He was trying to keep the townhouse, keep the money he'd hitting, keep everything he'd built with Linda while giving me the scraps. I signed the papers acknowledging I'd received them. Then Patricia filed our response. We asked for full financial disclosure. We asked for depositions. We asked for half of everything, including the townhouse in Greenbrier Estates. We asked for reimbursement of the $73,000 plus interest. We asked for half his pension. We attached copies of every document I'd found, every bank statement, every property record, every credit card bill. Roger's lawyer called Patricia that same day. Patricia put him on speaker so I could hear. His voice was tight, angry. This is not what we agreed to. Your client didn't agree to anything with my client, Patricia said calmly. Your client lied for years. Your client hid assets. Your client transferred marital funds without permission. My client is entitled to half of everything. That's the law. This is going to cost him everything. That's what happens when you lie. They hung up. Patricia looked at me. He's going to fight this. It's going to take time. Months, maybe longer. Are you ready? Yes. Roger called me that night. I didn't answer. He called 5 more times. Then he texted, "We need to talk, please." I didn't respond. 2 days later, he showed up at the house. I opened the door, but I didn't let him in. We stood on the porch. It was October, cold. The leaves were turning orange and yellow. Pretty if you cared about that sort of thing. "You're trying to take everything," he said. His face was red. "The house wasn't enough?" "I committed fraud," I said quietly. "You hid money. You bought property without my knowledge. You thought I was too old or too stupid to notice, but I noticed. I was going to take care of you. By leaving me with one house while you kept everything else? That's not taking care of me, Roger. That's throwing me away. I gave you 48 years, and you gave Linda 3, with my money, with our money." He stepped closer. "You're doing this out of spite." "No," I said. "I'm doing this because it's fair. You want a divorce? You get a divorce, but you don't get to rob me on the way out." He stared at me like he'd never seen me before. "I don't even know who you are anymore." I could say the same. He left. I closed the door. I sat on the couch and I shook. Not from fear, from anger, from years of being invisible and taken for granted and assumed to be simple. Roger thought I'd just accept whatever he offered. He thought I'd be grateful to keep the house. He thought I'd disappear quietly. But I wasn't going to disappear. The divorce took 8 months. 8 months of lawyers and depositions and financial disclosures. Roger had to explain every charge, every transfer, every lie. His lawyer tried to claim the townhouse was a separate property because it was purchased with his income. Patricia shut that down immediately. Community property state. Every dollar he earned during our marriage was half mine. The townhouse was half mine. Roger tried to claim the money he transferred was for business expenses. Patricia made him prove it. He couldn't. It was reimbursed in full plus interest, $3,200 in interest. During discovery, we found out more. Roger had taken out a personal loan using our house as collateral without my knowledge or signature. That was illegal. The loan was for $50,000. He'd used it to help Linda buy a car and renovate the townhouse. Patricia filed a fraud claim. Roger's lawyer tried to negotiate it away. Patricia refused.
In March, Roger's lawyer called with a settlement offer. Roger would give me the house free and clear. He'd pay me $100,000 from the sale of the townhouse. He'd give me 40% of his pension, and he'd cover my legal fees. Patricia looked at me. It's not bad. Not as good as we'd get in court, but court takes time. You'd have everything resolved in 60 days. What would we get in court? Half the townhouse sale, probably $200,000, half his pension, so closer to 50%, but it could take another year, and trials are unpredictable. I thought about it, about more months of this, more lawyers, more depositions, more seeing Roger's angry face. I was tired. I was 73 years old, and I was tired. Tell him we want half the pension, 50%, and $150 from the townhouse sale, and he covers all legal fees. Final offer. Patricia called back an hour later. He agreed. I felt something release in my chest. Okay, the papers will be ready next week. You'll sign, he'll sign. 60 days later, you're divorced. Okay. That night, I sat in the living room alone. The house was quiet. I'd lived here for 45 years, raised no children but hosted Roger's family every holiday, painted these walls 4 times, replaced the roof twice, fixed the plumbing, tended the garden. Every inch of this place had my work in it, and now it was just mine, fully mine. I thought I'd feel sad, but I didn't. I felt light, like I'd been carrying something heavy for years and finally put it down. The divorce was finalized in May. I got the papers in the mail. Official stamps, legal language. Margaret Hartman and Roger Hartman were no longer married. I sat at the kitchen table reading them. 48 years dissolved into 10 pages of text. The money came through in June. $150,000 deposited into my personal account. The deed was transferred to my name only. Roger's pension was split. I'd get a check every month for the rest of my life, $1,700 plus my own Social Security. I'd be comfortable. Not rich, but comfortable. I didn't hear from Roger after the papers were signed. No goodbye, no apology, nothing. I heard through his brother's wife that he married Linda in July. Small ceremony, just a few friends. They were living in the townhouse together, playing house for real now. I wondered if she knew what it cost him. $150,000, half his pension, legal fees. I wondered if she thought it was worth it. I didn't care anymore, not really. I was busy with other things. I'd started volunteering at the library 3 days a week. Beth had asked if I wanted to help teach computer classes for seniors. I said yes. It felt good to be useful, to teach something, to matter in a small way. I also started traveling, small trips at first. I went to visit my niece in Colorado. I'd never been. The mountains were beautiful, cold and sharp and huge. I felt small standing under them, but not in a bad way, in a way that made everything else feel small too. Roger, the divorce, all of it. In September, I took a bigger trip, a bus tour through New England to see the fall leaves, 12 days. I shared a room with a woman named Donna from Ohio. She was 75, widowed, funny. We stayed up late drinking wine from plastic cups and talking about our lives. She'd been married for 52 years. Her husband died of a heart attack 2 years ago. She said she missed him every day, but she was learning to be alone, learning to be herself again. You spend so long being someone's wife, she said, you forget you're a whole person without them. I understood that. I'd been Roger's wife since I was 24. I didn't know who Margaret was without him, but I was learning, slowly, one day at a time. When I got home from New England, there was a letter waiting from Roger. I almost didn't open it, but curiosity won. Inside was a single page, handwritten. Margaret, I know this is too late, but I wanted to apologize, really apologize. Not for the divorce, but for the lying, for the disrespect, for making you feel invisible. You deserved better. You deserved honesty. I was a coward, and I'm sorry. I hope you're doing well. Roger. I read it twice. Then I folded it back up. I didn't respond. What would I say? Thank you for the apology that came after you got caught? Thank you for feeling guilty now that it's over? No. I put the letter in a drawer. Maybe someday I'd throw it away. Maybe not. But I didn't need to respond. He didn't get my forgiveness just because he asked for it. October came. 1 year since I'd tried to surprise Roger at work with pot roast. 1 year since everything changed. I thought about that day a lot, about standing in that lobby holding warm food, being told I wasn't authorized, how small I'd felt, how confused. But I didn't feel small anymore. I felt clear. I felt like myself, whoever that was. One Thursday afternoon, I was at the library helping with computer class. An older man came in, maybe 75. Nice face, kind eyes. He was struggling with email. I sat with him for an hour showing him how to attach photos. He laughed at himself. I'm hopeless with this stuff, he said. You're learning, I said. That's what matters. His name was Frank, retired teacher, widowed 3 years. He came back the next week and the week after. We started having coffee after class, just talking about books, about travel, about life. He told me about his wife, how much he missed her. I told him about my divorce, not everything, just enough. 48 years and he threw it away, Frank said, shaking his head. Some men are fools. Some men are, I agreed. Frank asked if I wanted to have dinner sometime, not at the coffee shop, a real dinner. I said yes. We went to a little Italian place downtown. We talked for 3 hours. He walked me to my car. He didn't try to kiss me. He just said he had a wonderful time. I said I had too. I drove home smiling. I couldn't remember the last time I'd smiled like that, real and easy and unprompted. It's been 2 years now since the divorce was finalized. I'm 75. The house is still mine, quiet most of the time, but I've gotten used to the quiet. I've learned it's different from loneliness. Frank and I are still seeing each other. Not married, not living together, just together. He has his place, I have mine. We have dinner twice a week, we go to movies, we took a trip to Maine last summer. We held hands on the beach. At 75 and 77, holding hands felt like everything.
I don't talk to Roger. I heard through family that Linda left him last year. I don't know the details, don't care to. But I heard she met someone else, someone younger, someone with more money. Roger's living alone now in that townhouse, the one he bought with my money. I wonder if he thinks about me, if he regrets it, but that's his burden to carry, not mine. I still volunteer at the library. I teach computer classes. I've gotten better at it, more confident. Beth and I are friends now. Real friends. She comes over for tea sometimes. She's 32, engaged. She asks my advice about things. I like that. Being asked. Being valued. Last month, I ran into Linda at the grocery store. Pure accident. We were both in the produce section. She saw me first. Her face went white. She turned her cart around and walked away fast. I didn't follow her. Didn't say anything. I just picked out my apples and moved on. She's not my concern anymore. She never really was. What I've learned in these 2 years is this: betrayal doesn't end you unless you let it. Roger tried to make me disappear. He tried to erase me while building a new life. But I didn't disappear. I got a lawyer. I got my half. I got my life back. Not the life I had before. Something different. Something mine. The money is invested now. Patricia helped me find a financial advisor, a woman named Grace. She's smart. She explained everything in simple terms, how to make the money last, how to grow it safely. I've got enough to live on for the rest of my life, enough to travel, enough to help my niece with college costs for her kids, enough to feel secure. Security. That's what Roger took from me. Not just money, the feeling of safety, of knowing where I stood. What I built it back. Different foundation this time, built on my own terms. I was cleaning out the garage last week, and I found that pot roast dish, the one I'd brought to Roger's office 2 years ago, the one I'd wrapped in tea towels. It was sitting on a shelf, forgotten. I washed it, dried it, put it back in the cabinet. It's just a dish, but looking at it, I remembered that version of me, the one who thought surprising her husband at work was a good idea, the one who didn't know about authorized visitor lists, the one who believed everything was fine. I'm not her anymore. I'm someone who knows better, someone who checks bank statements and asks questions and doesn't accept less than she deserves, someone who survives, who rebuilds, who learns to be alone without being lonely. Frank called last night, asked if I wanted to drive up to the lake this weekend. There's a craft fair. Maybe lunch at that place with the good fish sandwiches. I said yes. We'll leave Saturday morning. We'll take our time. We'll stop if we see something interesting. We'll talk and laugh and hold hands like two people who've earned their second chances. The house is quiet tonight, just me and a cup of tea and the television on low. In the morning, I'll get up, make coffee, water the plants, maybe call my niece, maybe read the book on my nightstand. Small things, ordinary things, but they're mine. This life is mine, hard-won and rebuilt and different from what I thought it would be. And you know what? That's okay, better than okay, because I'm still here, still standing, still learning, still becoming whoever Margaret is supposed to be. Roger thought he could write me out of the story, but this story was never his to write. It was always mine, and it's not over yet. If this story of quiet strength resonated with you, if you ever felt taken for granted, let me know in the comments. Share your own small acts of courage. And if you want more real stories about finding your voice later in life, hit that subscribe button and ring the bell for the grandma's chair. Remember, your peace is not a luxury, it's your right. Protect it, nurture it, live in it. Until next time, be gentle with yourself, but be fierce for your own peace. Bye for now.